they're going to need over $2 trillion. So,
and we'll have a deficit.
The question is, how much are the foreigners going to supply? It sure as heck isn't going to be $2 trillion, because they're already buried in about $2.8 trillion worth of paper. It's going to have to be monetized. So, your parallel to Zimbabwe and even Weimar is there. I mean, we don't know how far this is going to go, but that's the only way they can go with it.
Well, of course, the president...
That situation's going to get worse, because as time goes on and the dollar weakens, these nations, which on average have 64.5% of all of their foreign exchange in U.S. dollars, are losing money every day.
Well, the thing is, of course, with a $3.6 trillion, $3.5 trillion budget, and then the stimulus bill, that was another $787 billion. And then they're talking about coming up with another $1 trillion to start buying up bad debts. I mean, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. Pretty soon you're talking about worthless money. And we're going to be back in just a moment with our good friend Bob Chapman right here at Radio Liberty. Well, this is Arthur Stan, and of course we're just talking with Bob about the $3.5 trillion budget. The stimulus plan, now, this is the largest budget ever been, and yet they have another $787 billion for stimulus, and then, of course, they're talking about coming up with another $1 trillion to start buying up debt. This money doesn't exist. It's just going to have to be created, and, of course, this is just a down payment on what they're going to have to come up with. And they're just going to have to create the money because the rest of the world is not going to continue lending it to us. And of course, we know what happens when countries do this. They go the way of the Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe. Why doesn't somebody tell Mr. Obama that you can't, cut taxes and increase spending? I mean, that seems to be the most logical thing in the world, and yet that's exactly what he's talking about doing. Oh, he's going to raise the taxes on the very rich, but they're going to find another way to get around that. They're not going to be able to provide the funds for this massive spending program. In fact, I understand that the Congressional Budget Office said that they were going to have a deficit of about 9.3 and 9.6 trillion dollars over this next 10 years. That almost doubles our national debt over the next 10 years, from 10.5 trillion where it is now to over 20 trillion dollars. You can't sustain that, can you?
No, of course not. And they don't care. And Mr. Obama's taking orders. That's how he got the job. He's not especially intelligent, maybe a little bit more than the last person that was in the White House. And he's there as a front man. And he teleprompts his way through life. And when a teleprompter's not there, he's got a real problem. And he's just a common street hustler. That's all he is. Well, so he doesn't make any decisions about anything.
But he's very, very convincing. He's very handsome. He's got a nice smile. He's very athletic looking. And he talks a good game, about how we just have to get those people from Wall Street to understand what the real world is like. And yet, of course, he's surrounded by the Wall Street people. They were his largest financiers. Why doesn't anybody ever tell the American people that Goldman Sachs was the second largest contributor to the Obama campaign, and J.P. Morgan Chase wasn't far behind it? Go right ahead, Bob.
Well, that means that he won't do anything that's going to harm these generous people. And that's why, I've contended for years, no lobbying, and no campaign contributions. The government should give every senator $100,000 each to run his campaign, and $75,000 for the congressman, and let them go at it, and let them go on issues, and that should all be sorted out a month before the election, not like it is now for 2 years.
All right, Bob. Well, certainly we understand now that the Premier of China has made some remarks about, really being very, very concerned about their large investment over here.
Well, they should be. They're losing a tremendous amount of money, probably around 50 to 60% of their investments have gone up in smoke. And if anything, if anybody if they would have said to somebody, please tell me where to invest where I could lose money, and they've done it. And I know it's not funny, but they really have not done very well.
But then, of course, we know that a lot of foreign investors have, put their money into T-bills. They wanted something that was going to give them stability, and because so many people investing in T-bills, the value has gone up. So the people who've come over here from foreign countries and invested in T-bills have done very well, haven't they?
Well, they haven't done very well because the yields, in under 10-year paper, I mean, the 10s are paying 280, and inflation in the dollar has ranged from 9 to almost 14%. Now, there's no way they can make money doing that.
Well, how about the price of the T-bills has gone up, on a short term over the last few months? I know it was off a little recently.
Yeah, but usually these people aren't trading the market. If they're looking for safety, they're looking for safety.
Right, and of course, then the dollar's been going up in value. I think it did fall a little recently, and I think it's going to fall a lot more.
It fell substantially, Stan, because it was 89.5
right.
on the USDX, and I don't know what the close is. I've got it right here today. If I can find it. Well, anyway, it's down around 85 or so.
Right. Well, I think it's going to fall a lot more. I think this is the thing. I think that people think that they don't know what to do with their money. People throughout the world are frightened. As well they might be. But I don't think the dollar is a very good place to invest your funds. At least that's what I think. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, this is Dr. Stan. We've got Bob Chapman as our guest today, and go right ahead, Bob.
Well, I haven't heard Kate Smith since a few weeks ago.
Well, I think that we're going to use that as our bumper music here because I think it's a beautiful song. Have you noticed we very, very seldom hear God Bless America sung anymore? In fact, I think that the establishment hates that song, and that's the reason it's not heard. I know other songs, very patriotic songs, that they've done everything they could to ban because they do not want our listeners to be patriotic or to love their country. They want them to become good little internationalists who go along with a plan for the New World Order and the New World Religion.
Well, I used to hear Kate Smith every noontime.
Well, if you...
I lived in the Eastern Time Zone.
Right. Well, if you listen to our program, and on our program, Bob, you'll continue to hear it more and more.
Well, that's good. I don't have the index in front of me. I do have it, though. And... but I'm trying to, it's 83.42, down from 89. That's a substantial drop.
That is a substantial drop, and that's what, the last, couple of weeks?
Yeah.
All right, fine. Okay, certainly gold and silver.
It's the effect of these financings.
Right.
People are saying, you got to be kidding me. In 1 year paper, they want to give me, maybe 0.60 of 1%. And I'm looking at inflation at 10. They're admitting to 2.5% inflation. I don't need that much safety. I'll go buy gold. I mean, that doesn't owe any money to anybody.
Well, of course, are people buying gold? That's the question. We saw the price move fairly well this last week. Yet, how did it do today?
Well, it closed down $4, and as soon as the market closed on the Crimex, that's a inside name for the COMEX, it closed down a total of $17.80, which is about $13.80 more. But you got to remember that a very small trade can create that. And our government deliberately goes into that market when it wants to and tries to drive gold down. I'll have a better feel for this at around midnight tonight when I take my prices down as to where this thing is going. I also take prices between 3:30 and 4 as well.
All right, well, you hang on there. We'll be back in just a moment with Bob Chapman. Well, Dr. Stan, Bob was just saying the gold was down after closing today. Obviously, the price is being manipulated, and there are growing shortages all throughout the world. But the last thing that the elitists want is for the people to have any means of protecting their wealth, because they intend to destroy it all. Well, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464 if you'd like to talk to Bob. But before we go on, Bob, I want you to tell our listeners